Welcome to Clever Title Pending with your host, Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. Don't send him title recommendations because Brian knows exactly what he's doing. So just sit down and look pretty as Brian K. Morris scrolls through your comments and plays with his mouse. Join him on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, for Evening Pandemonium and Moonlight Madness.
Okay, everyone. Hello, good evening to you, and welcome to another Clever Title Pending for June 16th, 2020. And I hope you're excited about tonight, because I know I am. We're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about faith, and I don't mean George Michael's first solo album. We are going to be talking about what faith means to many writers, and we have three people here who are three of my favorite people, and they're going to talk about how their faith in God influences their work, or maybe how it doesn't. And as always, we welcome your comments here. So we're going to add people to the stream here. There they are, and we're going to unmute you guys so that we can hear your wisdom. Hello, greetings, everyone.
How you doing?
And Tony, I'm Tony Jr. I think, I'm sorry, my sign is covering up your face. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can fix that. Dang it. Let's try this. Okay, we hate to give StreamYard more credit than they're due, but I'd rather Tyrone Tony Reed get his proper exposure here, because he looks so handsome. He's the real professional broadcaster here. So, because Lord knows if there was any evidence of it, you couldn't convict me. But anyway, we hope everyone has some questions ready for these wonderful people. We're going to talk a little bit and let them introduce themselves, and we're going to go as we're looking clockwise, and we're going to start with the one, the only, the delightful Cathy Jackson. So, Cathy, take it away.
Hi, my name is Cathy, and we're talking about faith, so I get to talk about my faith tonight, which is one of my favorite subjects next to my children. Quick story of my testimony. I was saved in 1999, and a couple of years after, that was 2001, and my son was born. My second son was born, and dedicated my life to the Lord. And every single day I make mistakes, yet I try super hard to do the right thing. And the wonderful thing about God is He is a God of forgiveness, so that when we do that moment that we do an oopsie, we can go to Him and say, hey, that's our bad, it's my bad, and I can totally do better next time. I'll try super hard to do better next time. So the wonderful thing about that is I get to bring it into my writing. And one of the ways I do that is by just using everyday life, circumstances around me, inspiration I find, and just hopefully not in your face sort of in my writing, not in your face sort of, hey, this is God and you have to accept Him and, He's your Lord and Savior, and thing, but just more, you know what? He loves you, and God is a God of love, and just showing people that He is love, and because of that love, we can love one another no matter what we think or anything else. So that's an amazing thing. I try to translate that through the books that I write.
Beautiful. And I noticed somebody sneaking in there behind you, ninja-like. Do you want to give that handsome young man a shout out there?
There you go. Yep, that's my husband. It's my husband, Matt. He actually does the covers to all my books.
Yo, what up?
And he's actually getting my books out for me because I totally forgot before I started this. We just got done with dinner, and I was like really quickly trying to set things up because you got to switch from mom mode to being in author mode. So sometimes it's not seamless. So
I understand. I fully understand. Matthew, it is good to see you, sir.
Hey,
hope you'll hang around. Hope you'll hang around, man. It's like an extra guest star. This is awesome. Anyway, speaking of awesome, we're going to throw it now to the one, the only Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. Tell us about yourself, please, my friend.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. I am the author of SOLAD, Soldiers of Light Against Darkness. My books are kind of like how Cathy described hers. My books aren't preachy, but they talk about how God loves you and cares about you and how he uses ordinary people. And that's what SOLAD, Soldiers of Light Against Darkness, is about. It's just like things that I experienced in life and using the demons that these people face in the book. To represent different things that we face in life, temptation, sickness, all those different kinds of things are mentioned in the book. So I'm happy to be here on the show.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you. Thank you for accepting my invitation. That's great of you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And now here he is. You know him. You love him. You can't get enough of him. There he is, the shy, the retiring David Adkins. David, tell everyone about yourself and your writing, please.
Oh, is it just me or is it God hair? No.
Now. Watch the lightning come down. It'll be live on the air, everyone. That'll increase my YouTube ratings. Go for it.
I guess I'm the heathen of the group. I was raised in a Christian family with a Christian school bringing up. And then from there, I went into actually doing physical and spiritual combat through spiritual warfare. And you want to talk about some stories? I've got them. There is quite a bit in a lot of paranormal that people don't understand, or it's a complex and very wide range of area to discuss. But needless to say, it opened up some avenues for me in the line of horror. And in my research, C.S. Lewis and a lot of other Christian writers went to that realm to try and, express what it is that we battle in a daily life. And in Hotel Nowhere, I went all, guns blazing. I took a guy without any faith whatsoever, and from what he goes through, he questions his sanity, he questions everything. And it's a lot of the same questions a lot of people have in real life. And in my life, we're talking about somebody who's went through a lot of major surgeries, a lot of health issues and all this sort of stuff. And you wonder, where is God? And in that, I answer that question pretty distinctly in Hotel Nowhere. A lot of people, wouldn't expect it out of a book like that. But, there's always a light. And we never see it in a lot of cases because we don't open up our eyes to actually experience it. And once you start looking around for that type of hope and that type of avenue to say, where is God? He's right there. And a lot of people just don't want to acknowledge it. And in that aspect, that's where I get a lot of my influence in writing and art. Is because, there's conflict. The Bible is full of it. And, amid the wars, amid the tragedies, amid, all the tragedies that happen, he's always there. And a lot of people just need to, be more open to see what is and less of, trying to look in the mirror or trying to compare to other people's lives.
All right. Very good. Very good. And we've had people popping in here just to let everybody say hello, everybody. There's Dave Woodrum says he's here, and then he's going to get a freezer pop, then he's here. Then there's a man with the right priorities. Sarah says hello. And Cindy Kemp says, good evening. Oh, we're glad you're here. And Carl Wisman, hello to you.
Hey, Carl.
Hello, Clyde Hall and Carlene, Meredith Logren, and Douglas Deck. Glad to see it. And here you go. Here's one for all of us. Mackenzie Smith and Andrew Beveau. Hi, Brian. Hi, Al. And hi, Kathy. And it's Andy Bovey, by the way. Okay, there you go. Okay, I know you now. I thought this must be your witness protection name. And Mickey says, hello, David. And Cindy Kemp says, preach the gospel daily, use words when necessary. There we go. Sarah loves your hair, David. And Carl Witzman said, I was going to ask if any other type of faith would be featured too. Well, I know we're probably not going to the same church. I'm Presbyterian. Does anyone else want to confess what they are?
Okay, I grew up Baptist, then I went to Methodist. Then after Methodist, I went Presbyterian. My mom went Quaker, so I joined that one. And then yeah, I've been all over the board and did the research on a lot of them. So now I guess I'm interdenominational.
I'll say you are. And just missing Judaism and Aztec culture. There goes David. Tyrone, how about you?
I don't know. I mean, if reincarnation was actually a thing, I think I would have been Mayan. So I could somewhat cover the Aztec part for you. But it would be a past life.
There we go. There we go. You're covering all for me, Cathy. That's why I brought you here. Thank you. How about you, Tyrone?
Right.
Right.
I grew up Church of God in Christ, but I go to a non-denominational church right now.
Okay, excellent. All right, and I gotta say, I go to a Presbyterian church where my Reverend stopped the sermon to recommend one of my books to the congregation. So I have the coolest church of any of you. So Bill Sarton says, "Good evening, Brian, Cathy, Tyrone, David, and the rest of the Bendarians. Good to see you, Bill." And Sarah Sarah, I claim spirituality over religion as a title. Well, you know what? We welcome everyone here, all right? Like Bob Dylan said, everybody's got to worship someone. And Anthony says, I'm pagan. Okay, cool. And there we go. We've got that demographic taken care of. Scientific atheist here, perhaps part Buddhist. There we go. And let's see. And Mickey is non-denominational. And, here we go. Many friends who are a Sutru and on the Norse path, okay, and eclectic gypsy path here, and Celtic and others, and hello to Davies, and Anthony has Buddhism in his belief rather.
So
I'm sorry, David?
I've got a lot of friends who are Buddhists.
Exactly. Yes, I do too. And Asa Tower here. And I'm sorry, Carlene, if I am mispronouncing that. I do apologize. And let's see. And Mickey says he never leaves us, nor does he forsake. Very cool. Very true. All right. And let's see here. Have I missed anyone else? Let's see. Here we go. And here we go. Lutheran with Southern Baptist tendencies. Oh boy. And
church.
I had a number of friends that did. And we went to a number of churches when Cookie and I first got married, and it was interesting. So Sarah says Buddhism is
the shackles and the flogging.
Yeah, well, I went to this church in the town I was living at the time, and they said, prostrate yourself before God. This, of course, was the weekend I brought my in-laws in to see where we worshipped, of course. And we see some guy who's built like me trying to stuff himself under a folding chair to prostrate himself before God. And I'm like, okay, we're going to look for another place next time. And Anthony grew up Catholic. Okay, that's cool. A lot of my friends are lapsed Catholics, so
they have phenomenally great celebrations, and their artwork and this, I can't knock it. It's phenomenal to be a part of if you can see certain weddings and certain, of the celebrations that they put on. It's amazing.
I do like the pomp and circumstance of it. So
yeah, we went to a Catholic church. We took our kids to a Catholic church because we wanted them to experience what it was like being in a Catholic church. And a friend of ours played the organ, and gorgeous organ, just a huge organ that filled the entire church. It was gorgeous. And one of the takeaways from the church is everybody drinking out of the same wine cup, right? And how the kids would not do that. Okay. Not only that, they love the footrests. And I'm like, sweetie, they're not footrests.
Yeah, we never had footrests. We had a sin of the week.
When you get tired.
Yeah, we had a sin of the week, never repeating for 10 years. But other than that, one day I did throw my church into a tizzy because I was 10 years old. I'll tell a story real quick. But I was 10 years old, and our church happened to be very anti-Catholic, which is unfortunate. So our teacher was trying to teach us about those evil Roman Catholics and said, do you know they believe you have to sin in order to be forgiven by God? And I'm like, wait a minute. You have to sin? You don't tell a precocious 10-year-old that there is a religion out there that will get you into heaven if you do wrong. And so, I had the training already. And so I asked how to convert. And I swear they wouldn't let me out of the building till I, reneged on my promise. So, it's like.
You're going to sin this week, right? You're going to do it. You're going to do the thing.
Yeah. It was more like one of those movies where they take the guy prisoner and won't let him out until he recants. It's like it felt like the Salem witch trials all over again. And let's see, Scott Duran is really confused. What did I drop in on? I'm about this.
It's easy to be confused.
Yeah, you picked the right place to be. You've got plenty of role models.
You got to think, hair like mine, and I went to a Quaker church.
You're gonna
oh dear.
Yes.
Okay, who's got a comment for anyone? Not me. So anyway, obviously we're gonna have fun with this, and don't let the spirit of religion get on you. It's ugly, says Mickey Anthony Smith. Okay, and Anthony says medieval religious art is incredible. I will agree. Many of the great works of art of history were inspired by or sponsored by churches, and it took a while to get the guilting out of me before I was able to be myself. Yeah, guilt is something I only wish I could feel anymore. And very rich images and colors. And let's see if we can catch up with anyone. And Anthony says the religious art of the knights is wonderful, as is the Arthurian legends. And Scott Duran is correct here. We're all born sinners according to God. And that's not just Roman Catholic. That's, I think, most of the religions I know feel that too. And let's see, I'm going to be skipping something or I'll never get to our questions, but we welcome yours, folks. Lots of folks just pretend throughout their lives just to fit in with the majority. And Scott Duran says, at least you have hair. Yeah, so go after David, folks. That's fine. I have no idea how Brian will keep up on our comments. He won't, but he's going to do it by skipping them.
Sharing if you're having overabundance.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we're going to save some for Nevermind the Furthermore tomorrow. So anyway, Brian moves fast. You've got to in this crowd. So anyway, on to my next question. You are all writers. What inspired you? What was your writer's journey? Where did you start? What got you into wanting to be a writer? And if you want to drag, don't be pointing at me, David. What will Cathy, cut it out. Don't you two start. Tyrone, I apologize for those two right off the bat. Okay. Anyway, but seriously, what got you on your writer's journey? And yeah, I can agree. Yeah, we're going to start with Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. because you two. All right, we will be distributing the first off as frequently as possible, but to reward him, we're going to put his banner up so that people will know where to pick up his amazing work. Okay, so we'll try to keep up on that as much as possible. So anyway, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., why don't you start us off? What got you started on your writer's journey?
Clark Kent. I was in love with Superman and I wanted to be Clark Kent. So when I was little, I decided I was going to put together my own newspaper for 25 cents and give it to my family members. And nobody bought it. But my mom, found when I was a teenager, my mom found a teen panelist for my major newspaper in Memphis called the Commercial Appeal. They were looking for teen reporters. So I signed up for that, and one night we came home, checked the answering machine, and they told me that I had become a team panelist. And I would go to the major newspaper every Saturday and work with people who were actually writing the news in my city, which was an awesome experience. From there, I ended up, they started a citywide high school newspaper called the Teen Appeal. And I did that for 3 years, and I got a lot of experience from that. And then I went to college and became a reporter for the Franklin College in Franklin, Indiana, named after Ben Franklin. And about a year or so after I graduated, I finally got a job at the Jackson Sun in Jackson, Tennessee. And now I'm still writing. I'm working as I do journalist news posts for my company, Forever Communications. In between all that, I loved Heroes. I used to play with my toys and do cliffhangers every evening and pick up the next day where I left off. And right before I graduated from high school, I got the idea of SOLAD, Soldiers Who Light Against Darkness, with Angela and Angeline, by using experience from being a high school student, and like, how would I feel if God called me to go to another world that was overrun by demons and told me that I was the only one who could help save this world.
That's awesome.
Would I run or hide, or would I stand up and fight? So
That's awesome. That is very cool. Now, how many books do you have in the SOLAD series right now?
Right now I have 2. I'm working on 3 and 4 at the same time. I don't know why, but that's the way it's working out. But I have it planned up to marriages and future generations already.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. All right. That's fantastic. It really is. I love hearing other people's journeys. I really do. David, how about you? What got you started doing this?
Well, I'd have to start with my first book I wrote, and that was in high school. I was in typing class, and I was bored. I was one of the only students who could type over 60 words a minute. So homework was way too quick. So I'm sitting here typing away after like 15 minutes of class, and my teacher come by and goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like sitting there going, "Writing." He starts grabbing all these pages that I'd already done, because I was doing approximately 2 to 3 pages a day. And when you add that up, that's pretty quick, because I've got an hour and I'm not doing anything. So me as a kid, my imagination's through the roof. And for some odd reason, I was able to keep going and keep going and keep going. And I found out that when I went home, I took my typewriter with me, because it was my mom's typewriter. And this was the old electric typewriters where you had to change the ink out.
Yeah. I remember those.
Very few people know that trouble.
That's true.
I'm sitting here going, correction. Oh, crap. How many people remember the Shift-Alt key and hitting the button to correct the letter that you just need to rewrite?
Yeah.
So, yeah, not many people know about that one. But, yeah, I did all of that. And so what ended up happening, by the time I ended, I forgot how many pages it was, but it was over 10 chapters easily. Because there again, I didn't know about writing. So to me, 10,000 words a chapter was normal.
And how soon were you disabused of this notion?
I know. And you got to think, these were pages, double spaced. So that's a lot of pages. So yeah, I had about 400 pages. Once it was condensed and I got it to switch to a computer, from there, I found out it was like 200 and some pages, but still, that's quite a lot for a kid.
Yeah.
And it got passed around page by page around the school, and everybody was fighting for the next page.
Wow.
Then I had the guys going, "When's the next page?" So I had to keep going.
There you go.
And from there, my teacher was able to read all of it. Apparently she was a fan. And then, and from there, yeah, my teacher begged me to publish it, and I didn't because I didn't see any money in publishing, and I didn't see any money in writing. How stupid was I?
Or how smart were they?
I know. And here's the other problem. I didn't know it. My cousin worked for the LA Times.
Wow.
No money in writing? Really? Yeah. And so it's one of those things where it took me forever. I finally got a job working at the Courier Tribune, again, newspaper, go figure. Started doing opinionated articles because it's me. And from opinionated articles, I was put on disability because of double transplant. So, no more working, no more anything. Couldn't think of anything to do, was at the bottom of the barrel. And how many times does God pick you up when you're finally at your limit? And I went to a convention out of just a whim. And from there, I met some really big stars who apparently I attract a lot of people at conventions for some reason. And they all started befriending me. Oh, don't give me that, Brian. But they just befriended me, this, that, and the other. Next thing I know, I'm a panelist. From a panelist, I ended up being a guest. From before I was a guest, though, I ended up writing my first book because I finished reading Harry Potter. And from there, I was like, magic doesn't work that way. And then I did Jim Butcher. And Jim Butcher, again, I said, he's got it a little bit better, but magic doesn't work that way. And for everything I saw there in my life, for every good, there's also the flip side. Because what a lot of people don't seem to realize is that when you love somebody, okay, let's say you get a spouse or anything, what a lot of people don't realize is there's somebody else who was knocked out of that space. So there's always the flip side of that coin. And so I looked at magic in real life in that aspect. And when I started looking at Sons of Solar Star, I literally went by that I didn't want the hero story. I didn't. I wanted the guy that literally was definitely Peter Parker. I wanted them to be vulnerable. I wanted them to be, always striving to do better. They wanted to be a hero, always got knocked down because something happening. They didn't know whether they did have the power or didn't have the power. That type of question that comes into your mind all the time, because in that aspect, that's what draws you. Because when you look at C.S. Lewis in the Tales of Narnia, he does that with almost every single one of his characters. All the kids do that. They don't know. At some point or other, they think they do, then they don't, then they do, then they don't. And you find out that at some point, there's the conclusion that you have that potential. It's not that you are or that you're not. It's that you have the potential. Mm-hmm. And that's where I came up with that whole story. And I think that's why it grabbed a lot of people.
Okay. All right. Well, now, Cathy Jackson, I know I happen to know this answer. Sometimes I ask questions I know the answer to.
That's why you saved me for last, because you already know
the best for last, darling. The best for last. No, Cathy's got a great backstory here, and I'd love it if you shared it with our audience.
Well, I might end up crying, but okay.
That's called good television, Cathy. So you'll be fine.
So, well, in my intro, I said that I was saved around 2001, and our second child was about 2-ish at the time, and we had two more children since then. I also had a miscarriage, and in 2014, I believe it was 2014, my mom died. And bear in mind, I had no accolades in school. I could skid by in school with a C, and my parents were totally jazzed, and I was okay with it. So when my mom died, I was very close to my mom, and I love her very much. So I didn't know what to do with the grief. It's kind of like, running toward a wall at full speed and just hitting that wall, and you don't know what to do with yourself. And I didn't. I had no clue what to do with myself. So one day I just sat down and I started writing, and I wrote this. It's a Doctor Who sort of fanfic sort of thing, an alternate universe sort of thing. That was awesome. And I found in writing, I was able to not really think about the grief. I mean, it was still there, but it wasn't like super hard, right? And it was easier to deal with. And of course, at that moment, I very much leaned on God in a way that I had never had, even through a miscarriage and other things that had gone on in my life. And it's just a new kind of grief that was just horrid. And I wouldn't wish it on my best friend or worst enemy. So after that, I started writing another book. And it was a romance. I love romances. Everything has to have a happily ever after, because sometimes life doesn't. And for me, if I sit down and read a book, I want a happily ever after. It doesn't have to be this perfect ending where everything's tied up with a nice little neat bow, but I want it to end with so much love and hope and light and faith, really, So I sat down and wrote As You Wish, which is this book here. And that wasn't going to do anything with it. I had the manuscript for it. And my sister-in-law says, I know an editor and she can edit your book for you. And I'm like, I'm not really going to do anything with the manuscript, And she says, nope, I'm going to get a hold of her. She's going to contact you. You're going to get this book edited, and then you're going to release it as a book. So Jennifer got a hold of me, and she's like, I love it. I'm going to edit it. You're going to release it. And another friend, Desiree Dordo, who went ahead and covered the book for me. And I mean, just through all that, As You Wish was published. As You Wish is very, between the lines of faith and hope, there is love. And it was such a beautiful, my husband calls it a cathartic release of just getting out that grief and working through it, really. So I kind of caught the writing bug at that point. Then I started on the Bloom series of books. And the first one is Bloom. And it's very much, it's beautiful. Love saved me. I mean, right there. Come on. That's awesome in itself. And it's a story of John and Phoenix. And John is my Christ character. He comes in, and Phoenix sort of saves herself, but she has that faith in God. And John has that faith in God. And together they work through her struggle with so much love and grace and care and faith and love and hope. And I say those words a lot because in my life, that's what I've needed to get through the things that I've had to get through. And then I did 5 Coffees, and then the 3-5 series of books. I also did Yours to Love, which is a purity series. I wanted something, when I sat down and wrote that one, I wanted somebody to say, you are worth waiting for. So don't settle for somebody who's here now. Settle for that. Wait for that one person that God says that's the person for you. And if you listen, God is going to tell you things that you should be doing. And the Bible says he will make your paths straight, which is condensed, I know, right? But he will, if you ask him, God, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? My prayer every morning when I wake up is, this is your day, God. Use it for your glory and your honor. And at the end of it, you receive all the praise. Every morning before I get out of bed, as I'm laying there, I always say that every morning. So I know that no matter what happens in my day, our dishwasher may break, the car may have a flat tire, whatever, it's going to be okay. And it's very reassuring to know that no matter what goes on, he's got my back. And that's amazing. And as I've started to write, whether it's through Yours to Love with the Purity series, right? I found myself writing something a little more risky in the Christian fiction. And that's where Jericho's Walls came in. Because I love my husband very much, and we have a very romantic relationship. And I wanted to express the fact that, hey, we can be Christians, right? But still have that romance. Because there's so many Christian books out there. My husband says, the sheriff meets the school marm, right? And they go to a picnic together, right? And 3 years later, there's 2 little kids running around him. So what happened? Obviously something happened a couple of times, right? But I mean, what?
Well, I just wondering if we're going to have that talk,
Right?
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, Cathy. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
So I wanted to kind of write in that element. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to write in the turmoil and the highs and lows of Christian relationships. In 5 Coffees, she's a Christian, very much a Christian. She's a song leader and a Sunday school teacher. He is not. So their relationship is very much unequally yoked. And she goes in with her eyes wide open, knowing that they probably shouldn't be together. And she says that often, right? But they're meant to be. And sometimes when people are meant to be together, right, it just flows. And I really wanted that story to be told. It's a beautiful story. And Jericho's Walls, between Jericho and Joshua, I really wanted that story to be told, to sort of break out of that stereotype of Christian fiction. I wanted that romance. I wanted that spicy sauciness of a relationship instead of just, meeting each other and then liking each other and they get married and then they have kids. I wanted to sort of go through some of that day-to-day stuff and also that fiery attraction, which Joshua and Jericho very much have in Jericho's Walls, and the complexity of the relationship. They're both Christian, but their tastes in romance run, let's say, non-traditional, because you've read it, Brian.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that because it presents such a different, right? Spicy.
Yeah.
But I love that because in Christian books, you don't get that.
What did Bill call it?
Edgy Christian romance.
Edgy Christian.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. I have to interrupt for a moment here because I was one of Cathy's beta readers, and I'm reading this, and it comes to a moment which I won't spoil for anyone because it's a really terrific book. But I'm sitting there reading, and I'm like, okay, this is good. This is Cathy. Wait a minute, what's this? And I'm like, wait, holy cats! And it wasn't tasteless at all. It was excellently described. I got the proper vibe from it, but I'm sitting there going, it's like, okay, Christian romance. That's what it says on the description. Right? But yeah, so yay, you girlfriend. So anyway, please continue. Please continue.
Yeah. So as I wrote that, and I kind of liked it because it was so far away from, and As You Wish, they got to hold hands, I mean, that's kind of as edgy as that got. They held hands, right?
Yeah.
And then in Jericho's Walls, there was more than just hand holding, like a lot more than just hand holding. But it was very much an expression of how they felt about each other. And as far as Jericho's Walls goes, I had readers from different writers from different genres read it, and they all said it would fit exactly into the genre, that it was written well, and it wasn't I don't know, crass or crude or like over that line, know.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, okay, well, I think I've done a great thing. I'm very proud of Jericho's Walls because it's different. And I found for myself personally, I was sort of getting stuck in writing that sort of same, not necessarily formula, but I wanted something different, right? I wanted to write something different, but stay within that faith genre, the genre that keeps God first, right? In the relationship, as he should be, right? Because in my own relationship with my husband, right, we put God first, and then Matt, and then myself. And that's how it works. Then we do the kids, family, friends, that sort of thing. That's priority. Because if we keep God right there at the head of our relationship, everything else falls in line. Every bit of it. For better or sometimes even for worse. Things happens as Christians. We lost our house at one point. It was foreclosed on. We got a paper in the mail that said, you have, was it 30 days or 90 days 90 days to leave your home. No advanced warning, things like that happen. We were at Barnes and Noble a couple of years ago and found out my brother had committed suicide. What? Just straight out of the blue. God isn't going to say, I'm going to take your life and make it perfect. And there's always going to be sunshines and rainbows. If you commit yourself to me, if you give yourself to me, he's going to say, those things are going to happen. But I'm going to be right there with you when they do. And there's so much peace. There's so much comfort. There's so much even happiness through those moments where God can take those things that are so incredibly horrific in your life and turn them to something so beautiful. And it's so amazing what he can do if someone just says, I'm going to give this to you. And one of the big struggles, I think, as most Christians have, we went to church on Sunday. There was something I was dealing with. And I found myself during service, after I'd given it to God, picking it back up again. And I had to mentally shake myself going, no, this is his. I've given it to him. And it's for his glory. And he's gonna take care of it. All I need to do is just walk in faith and trust and know that he is right there and that he's going to lead, guide, and direct everything I need to do. And he does every single time something's happened. He's always been there. And the books that I write aren't edgy Christian fiction. They're not going to be that sweet little romance, that's like in the Bloom series. Her name, Phoenix struggles with domestic abuse. So there's a domestic abuse scene that my editor actually chopped up. She says it's too graphic. Part of it had to go, but it had to show where Phoenix was to where she had gone to at the end of the book. There had to be that darkness to go through to the bright light at the end of the book. So it's all about keeping God first, whether it's your life or your writing. And sometimes you're going to find yourself, I've found myself, I've found myself even writing out of the faith genre just as a challenge to myself. But what I do is clear it with God first. Should I write this? Is it okay? And I did write right around Christmas, I did write a book called Underneath My Innocence. And it was not in the Christian genre. But Christmas is always a terrible, terrible time for me. But I'm getting better. I'm getting better at it because my mother's favorite holiday was at Christmas. And so I always struggle right around Christmas. It's just so hard. And this last year I thought, you know what? I want to write a book that I want to read. So I wrote totally out of the Christian genre and released Underneath My Innocence right around Christmas time. Because for me, it gave me a focus. It gave me a focus that, yes, was still on my family, of course, and always still on God. But it gave me a focus outside of myself to just to know that everything's going to be okay and to work through it. So I did that. And sometimes, you know what? As long as what I'm doing is always cleared with God, it doesn't really matter what other people are going to say. And yes, I do take their thoughts into consideration. But you know what? If I'm okay with God, then everything else is just fine.
Excellent. Good answers, all of you. Very good answers. And now we're starting to get some questions from our audience, and we'll throw them at you now. Bill Sarn wants to know, question for your guests, what's your favorite book in the Bible and why?
Ooh.
My people don't ask softball questions, okay? Who wants to step up to the plate on this one?
Oh,
Don't
wow.
ever-
So,
Don't ever start pointing at Tyrone again, okay? Really, we're not having that.
I will say this much. That was an easy one for me.
Okay, let's hear it.
There's a major one for me in that, because being named after, the character in the Bible didn't do me any favors.
Expectations?
Let's be honest. Okay,
Yeah.
he murdered his one of his best friends, high generals, and somebody who saved his life. He ended up committing adultery. He ended up doing all of this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, I don't want to be like him.
So give you a negative example to work against, right?
He was most beloved by God. I was like, look what he did. No.
Well, maybe that just shows that you can be a total, you can have all these, shall we call them less than desirable traits, and still you are loved by God.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm banking on. That's what I'm, that's what I'm gambling on my life. So, okay.
In my life has mirrored somebody who is definitely not one of the upper tier. And that's Gideon, because he questions God continuously. God gives him an answer. Not good enough.
Yeah. There's that. Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah, God will give you one more chance at the answer here. Yeah, I get that.
No, it's like he gives you 3 different answers to say yes. And I am so much like him, because I am, everybody will tell you I am a force to be reckoned with, but in the same instance, I'm always double questioning. I hate that I'm a perfectionist, but I can't think or imagine myself being wrong, because that is the worst of the worst of the worst. And when I was a kid, everybody, and I'm talking everybody in the church, everyone in my family knew I was going to be a preacher. And I was like, I can't. And they were like, but you have all this knowledge, you know all this stuff. You preach to preachers. And I'm sitting there going, doesn't matter. You still have to love your the flock, and I can't. And they were like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, for a preacher, you have to love your flock. And I can't, because I see humans as ignorant, stupid, and choosing to be. So under those circumstances, I can't be a preacher. And one preacher answered me very honestly. He was like, then be an evangelist. I was like, oh, gee. I was like, wow.
Yeah, ouch.
I was like, really?
Oh my gosh, wow.
But when you think of Billy Graham, the way he started, hellfire and brimstone, I mean,
Yeah.
geez. And I didn't want to be that mean. So I literally come by and I was like, I'm just going to wait for God. And it was a long wait, because God gave me sign after sign after sign after sign. I mean, come on. How many times can people tell you, you need to publish this book before you end up publishing one of them?
True.
I literally wrote 3 books and been a writer in a newspaper, and for some odd reason, still wasn't thinking of getting paid to write. So I'm like, it's all about Gideon to me. I don't want to be wrong. And I think if anything, the Old Testament is full of saints who all made mistakes. They all goofed. They were the biggest goof ups in all of the Bible. Let's be honest. I think Deborah's the only one that wasn't. You're at the front of the line. Okay. That's what you call faith.
Well, there you go. There you go. Well, how about
it's one of those things where, the Bible is full of screw-ups. As the main characters, there's only one that was ever perfect. And if anything, if we can be as good as I'd say the worst saint, that don't matter. It only matters about our faith. That's it. It's not about, actions. Even the Bible says that, faith without actions is dead.
Mhm.
But in the same instance, it still takes faith. Because actions without faith is useless. So it still comes down to faith.
That's true. That's true. And Cathy Jackson, what's your favorite book of the Bible and why?
I don't think I actually have one. Okay, Matt, go ahead. Which one is it?
Your favorite book of the Bible is Revelation.
My very first. I read books backwards. Okay, I'm that person.
You get to right to the ending, is what you're saying, right?
I do. I am not going to emotionally invest myself in the book if it's going to have a bad ending. I'm not going to do it, man.
Okay. I
So-
guess that solves everything. Good night, everyone. No,
Right? What do you mean? So the first time I sat down and read the Bible, picked up a Bible, I read the book of Revelation because everybody, I was probably 12 and I'd never been to church. Okay. All right. So I was trying to figure out why everybody was so jazzed about this God person. Okay. Why was everybody so happy? And what made them so happy about this God, Jesus people? Okay. So I was trying to figure that out. So I thought, you know what? If this is like their favorite book, right? It's got to have a good ending. I was 12. Okay. So I read the book of Revelation and I loved it. And my takeaway from the book of Revelation for my 12-year-old, very unchurched mind was if you're a Christian, you win. Who doesn't want to be on the winning team?
there
Right?
you go. Yeah.
Right?
Good point.
Okay,
Right.
I'm 12, right? That's my takeaway from the book. It wasn't the fantastical stuff in the book of Revelation, right? It was, hey, if you love God, you win. Well, awesome. Sign me up. Right? and that was it.
That's very practical.
Right?
Wow.
You want to be a winner? There you go.
There you go. Here's the shortcut, folks. Here's the cliff notes to it.
Well, it's the book of Revelation cliff notes. If you're on the right team, you win.
There we go.
Right.
There we go. Now we've solved that for y'all. Anyway, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., what's your favorite book and why?
Oh boy, I like Job. I love Job's story, but I like Joshua also. It's helped me a lot with be strong and be courageous, and I'm with you wherever you go. Oh, I've needed that so much in my life, so that's helped a lot. But I like I said, I like Job too because how dedicated to God was Job that the devil was willing to go up to God and say, "Hey, let me test this man and see if he all that you think he is and that you claim he is," and just taking everything from him. I mean, we all have gone through things, but nothing as bad as probably Job has gone through with losing your kids, your wife turning against you, your friends coming to you and telling you, you must have done something really bad for God to let all this happen to you. But to know that it was just a test of his faith and a test of his testimony. He had a great testimony where how hard it must have been for him to be alone, like thinking, I'm by myself. Why was I even born? To the point where he just got so hurt and upset about what was going on with him, but to still hold on to faith that God was going to see him through and take him through to the end, and how he was blessed at the end. That's something that we all can hold on to But those two, those.
I get it, man. I get it. That's great reasons. Great reasons. Well, Cindy Kemp has some great questions for you guys now. Get ready for these. I say great because I hadn't thought of a couple of them. Anyway, Cindy Kemp asks, do you write tales with your faith overtly featured, or are you sneakier about it? I see you stroking your beard there, David. That's why I'm going to start with Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. Anyway.
I went into SOLAD with the specific purpose of not being preachy, because if you start preaching to people, like just being preachy and you're condemned and this and that, I mean, that doesn't get anybody. So I started with real people who face everyday situations, temptation, fear, and I made the demons those things. So the demons that they face have those powers. The temptation is a woman who's beautiful. She knows exactly what you like. She knows exactly what you want. And that's how she gets her victims. And the heroes have to decide, do I give in to this temptation, or do I draw on the strength that God gave me in order to overcome that? Or fear, they see their greatest fears. All those demons have those powers, and we see how they react, how the heroes react, and how we think about how we would react in the same situation, because we deal with that every day.
Mhm.
We deal with that every day. There are some people who can't leave out their house because they're captive from fear. They are so afraid that something's going to happen that they're not living their lives. I've been there where I've written stories or written books, and I go, well, who's going to read it? Why would they read it? I don't know if everybody's going to like. Everybody's not going to like everything that you write, but to not do it at all. And those are the moments where the Lord has helped me when I'm at conventions. And I'll tell this right. I was at a convention in Memphis at Mid-South Con, and this woman had came and bought my book. I didn't have change. She said, "Here you go anyway. I just want to give you the whole thing."
Wow.
And she walked away. She walked away, and about an hour and a half, she came back to the table. And she said, "I just want to let you know that I'm already like 3 or 4 chapters in, and I'm telling you this book is amazing. And I just want to let you know that." And that helped me so much, because during that time, I hadn't gotten any sales for a couple of hours. And I was just, why am I sitting here? Why am I doing this? And for her to come back right then and encourage me that way meant so much to me.
That's great.
I think so
That
much
is-
about faith writing. I'm gonna say faith writing and just kind of just throw that under a category.
Sure.
Is really touching people. It's reaching
Mhm.
people. And I don't know how many times you're talking about that, Tyrone. You know,
Mhm.
where you were sitting at a table and you're like, "Why am I here, God?" There was
Right.
one time at Eclipse Con that we had no sales, I think, that day, or maybe we had a few sales. And at the end of the day, a woman came up and bought As You Wish, and I'm just like, okay, God, it's Sunday, and I didn't really want to be here. I wanted to be in church with my church family, and and I spent the whole day kind of mad-ish. Well, I know I shouldn't be, right? But at the end of the day, she comes up and she's like, "My mom just died." I'm like,
Mhm.
of course,
Mhm.
I'm sort of I'm sort of an empath-ish, where I can kind of feel that, and just the impact of her words. I mean, my eyes started watering, and I'm just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I mean, because I understand that, I get it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so she's like, "Tell me about your books." The switch. So I told her about As You Wish, and she's like, "I want to take that home. I want to read it." And she did get back with me, and she's like, that book helped me so much. So it's not
Mhm.
so much, I mean, yes, we want to make sales. Yes, we want to get what we write out there because we love it. We've been inspired to write it, right? But a lot of it is just helping people. It's changing people's view of how they see life, and how, everything can be so much better, whether it's no matter what we write about, and touching people where they are through our works. I mean, that's the greatest compliment that we could
Mhm.
ever. I think if I was given the offer of here's $1,000 or changing somebody's life for the better or touching somebody, I want to touch somebody.
Right.
I want to reach out there and say, it's going to be okay. Or, you know what? You've done fill in the blank. You know what? God says that's okay. And he loves you anyway. You know, and that's the whole, for me, you know, as a faith writer, that's what I want.
Mhm.
So I resonate with that story, Tony, so much.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, David, how about you? Are you? Well, I know the answer. You're a little sneakier about it.
I'm way sneaky. My books are a little bit out of the range of a lot of people's writing because I grew up with Agatha Christie. I grew up with C.S. Lewis. I grew up with greats. I wanted to compete on that tier. I wanted the type of twist you never saw coming. And so when I look at C.S. Lewis, knowing his history, knowing Tolkien's history, how they are now seen as Christian books, I was like, I want that. I want it to where it comes by and blindsides you. And when I wrote Sons of Solastar, I didn't get any of that response at all. But I had a lot of people coming back to me on some of the parts in it saying, this helped me. This helped me. And this, that, and the other. And I was like sitting there going, okay, that's good. Then I came up with Hotel Nowhere thinking, okay, this is going to just be a normal horror story. Nothing's going to come of it. One of the first people that came back to me, like they bought it at the convention. They came back 2 days later, already finished it.
Wow.
They come literally to me and they were like, you're a Christian, aren't you? I was like, wait, what? She was like, I can tell by the book. I was like, how? And she was like, the way you make him go through everything he goes through is a literal, like every single saint in the Bible. And I was like, you saw that? And she was like, I was like, wow. And so that's unfortunately where I got a lot of the storylines. I was like, really read into it. But yeah, I make him go through all the questioning of himself the exact same way that Job did. I send him through absolute, you know what? Because I wanted it a lot like Job, where every single person in society is against him, where he has to question himself, where, you know, he doesn't know about Job. He doesn't know about the Bible stories. He doesn't know anything, but he knows that these monsters are coming after him, and he doesn't know why. And so under those circumstances, and what you realize is the unknown enemy is literally, you know, Satan himself, technically, because what you find out is that everything is working in his favor. Everything there that's in that hotel is under his puppeteering. So when he goes into reality versus the hotel, it's one of those things of he can't control. He finds out he can control some of what happens later on, but he can't find any way to combat what he's facing until he starts realizing the truth. And when he starts realizing the truth and starting to read the pages and starting to understand, he's knowing that it's not so much of what he did, it's what he didn't do. And so from there, that's where you get it. And he gets, you know, salvation at the end, but the salvation that he gets, he doesn't, it's not really a closure, because you find out, okay, fine, if I can't attack you, I'll attack everybody around you. And I got cussed out by one of my friends because of that last page. Oh, because you think it's over, you think it's done, and he was like, I hate you. I was like, I do. And he was like, the refrigerator. I was like, oh, yeah, that.
So you got feedback on your book. That's awesome.
There you go.
I left it right on the last page. And you reading the last page ain't going to be a spoiler. So you're still not going to understand. So he went through it the entire thing. When he finally read that last page, he just started steaming. He was like, that's so unfair. I was like, not really. When you consider it, being saved ain't the end.
Mm-hmm.
You get saved, you may think you're safe to a point, but now everybody else is open season.
That's true. Now, Cindy Cap has some more good questions. Now, this one is real simple, and we can all answer it real quick. Do you self-pub or traditional? You are all self-publishers, right?
Well,
okay, have you been picked up by a traditional publisher?
Well, yeah. I'm working on 2 right now that I am going to be going to a publisher for.
Okay.
I'm going to have to.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was the easy question we get now. The next one is here we go. You've talked about, David, that you've gotten a little bit of from some of your readers. This is for all of you. And do you get more pushback from Christians or non-Christians? Do you get non-Christians who don't want to read this stuff? And oh dear, I see Cathy. Okay, Cathy's going to get to ask first. Or do you get like more from Christians who don't like how you portray faith? And Cathy, we're going to let you. And I see that smirk on Matthew's face back there, so I know this is going to be gold, folks. This is going to be gold. Get the VCRs ready. Cathy?
I get more pushback from people who are Christians because of the subjects that I touch on. Domestic abuse. Evelyn was a stripper in a strip club. Pornography. My books are Christian books, but they touch on, in Jericho's Walls, I kind of alluded to that earlier. There's some spanking and sexual foreplay that goes on. Okay? So those things are not in traditional Christian romance books.
You certainly won't read it in a Jeanette Oak book.
You will. No, you will not read that.
But that's what a lot of the Christian readers are expecting. They expect Jeanette Oak and the sheriff and the schoolmarm kind of situation and the whole thing. And they want the story to be like everything is perfect and bright sunny skies and rainbows for the Christians, and real life isn't that way.
So when I write books, that's not how that's written, okay? And I purposefully write that way because as Christians, our life isn't sunshine and rainbows, and we've got to know how to deal with that. And yes, we take it all to God, but then there's the outward external circumstances and things we deal with after we take it to God. Whether it's somebody who knows that we lied about something, or somebody who knows that we stole something, or somebody from our past who knows us before we were Christians, and we're trying super hard to become someone new and become that person that God wants us to be, right? And I want those stories to be told, and I want those people to know that we aren't perfect, and on this side of heaven, we're never going to be perfect, no matter how hard we try. I mean, that's Bible, okay? But you know what? I actually had a lady ask me about my book once, and I said, yes, I'm a Christian writer. And she looked at it, and she's like, what's this book about? So I told her, and she's like, well, I'm not going to read that. And she had told me herself she was a Christian. She loves Christian books. But yeah, she's like, you shouldn't be writing that. And I'm like, why shouldn't I be writing it? And I mean, it's so crazy. You either are a Christian and you're the staunch, hand-holding Christian, or it's like there's some other extreme where you aren't. But where's the middle ground?
Yeah, that's true.
There's middle grounds in there that need to be explored by people like Tony and David, and you don't have to be like in your face preaching about it. But you know what? The message is there. And when that message is there, people resonate with it and they respond to it. But as far as my books, I get more pushbacks from people who are Christians. for my part.
Okay, all right. Mr. Reed, how about yourself?
I was just gonna say it's crazy because it's people. It's like those Christians have never read Proverbs before. I mean,
Song of Solomon. Go
yeah,
read
yeah,
Song of
yeah, yeah.
Solomon.
It's the Song of Solomon. Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay.
But no,
Solomon was what brought me in.
Doesn't surprise
Yeah.
Anyway, Tyrone, please.
But mine's I think is non-Christians. More Christians seem to, soldiers of light against darkness. When I explain that to them, they're like, "I get that." As soon as I heard the title, I knew that's what that was about. I had a young lady come up to me at the convention once and said, "What soldiers of light against darkness?" I explained it to her. She was like, "You got demons in it?" I said, "Yeah, I have demons in it." You talk about God? I said, "Yes, I talk about God." And she looked at the book and okay, and just set it down and walked away. So. But I've had people who weren't identifying themselves as Christian who said, I really like the book. It's been great. But for the most part, non-Christians.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, David, how about you?
I get pushback from both.
This is my surprise expression.
I get I get pushback from the Christians because of my book covers. But then if you've ever seen, Sons of Solastar, The Broken Chain, it's got a pentagram on the front of it made with chains. And I'm sitting here the whole time going, that's not a pentagram. And they're like, but it is. No, that's the Star of David in a circle, and it's actually a Jewish sign. So, know your history.
It's mad at you, David. See?
I mean, if they're going to be accusing, I'll straighten them out quick. That's one thing about me. I don't pull punches. I can't. But, I get that a lot of people, if I put it in a public bookstore, a lot of people walk by it. And when I did it, the bookstore owner came to me and goes, "You got a lot of pagans that are reading this book." Like, okay, I don't mind it. At least it's selling. And so, come to find out they liked it. And I'm like, the whole time going, it's just because of the book cover, isn't it? And they were like, yeah, pretty much. And so I was wondering, I'll change up my book covers and this, that, and the other. But with Hotel Nowhere and We Were Gods, in both cases, I went more of the alternate type covers. And because of it, I had like Hotel Nowhere. Man, I got backlash from both sides on that one. I got, I got both of them that liked it. And then I got both of them that hated it. Because in one aspect, I got this one girl who said she couldn't get past the 4th chapter because it was too terrifying. And then I had others of them that were Christians saying, "How can you write something like this?" I was like, "Well, it's true, isn't it?" And they were like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Well, consider it." I mean, when you're talking about paranormal and mental capacity, somebody that's slightly going insane, whether it's PTSD or otherwise, that's what they experience. And I've got plenty of, friends that I can tell you about that go through just this. And they don't know how to respond because demons attack you way differently than what normal people expect. They expect you to be tempted with lust or greed or this, that, and the other. And I'm like sitting there going, no, that's not the way it is. Did you not read Scarlet Letter? And they were like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Are you kidding?" And so I literally went to them straight out. And it's the way that a lot of people don't realize the way that we are attacked constantly is in a lot of cases, it's tempting through other people to attack us. whether through hate, prejudice, bias, or this, that, and the other, even fear. Then you're talking about other people that come to us who actually support us, but then they get attacked and we get to hear about it, giving us negative feedback on those who support us. Then you're talking about a ton of other stuff that I put in those notes. That it's one of those things where when you start realizing that Satan is not going to attack you if you're protected, he'll go after everybody else. And then they will go after you. And it's them listening to Satan instead of you listening to Satan. That's the problem. And even worse is the fact being that, this is one of the things that I say often to a lot of people. If Satan's tempting humans, then who tempted him in the first place? Mm-hmm. And now you're starting to realize that we are the creators of our own sin in a lot of cases because we're too busy comparing ourselves to all these other people the exact same way that Lucifer did. Mm-hmm. And that aspect alone, when you look at my book, he does that. He starts comparing himself to this, that, and the other, what's been said about him, what wasn't said about him. And he starts looking at everybody else looking at him. So it's a third world type view of how he sees himself instead of seeing himself as he actually is. Because if we could actually do that, then under those circumstances, we'd see ourselves through God's eyes. Well, in a lot of cases, we don't do that. We rather see ourselves the way other people perceive us. And there's where the problem is. So I get a lot of negative feedback because of that book, of either those that don't understand it, don't understand the covers, don't understand, what I'm trying to do, or I get the feedback of the others who know I'm a Christian, and then they attack me for writing something so, convoluted or controversial. And I'm like sitting there going, okay, go read the Scarlet Letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. Or the screw tape letters, if you really want to be honest about it.
That's true. That's true. So if anyone is offended by this episode, please send your letters to David. I'll be putting this up later because he's more used to it than the rest of us.
Yeah.
Bring it. Here's another great question from Cindy. Do you find more or fewer restrictions writing overtly religious works? And, Cathy, I think you touched on that, many people who read Christian literature have expectations, just like you would any other genre. Like you expect certain, expectations in science fiction or in horror or in, police procedural detective stuff. And so as a writer, do you find more or fewer, I guess we call them self-restrictions, as you write in, with your faith in mind? And we'll throw this open. Who wants to start first?
I find all the
Before everyone pointed at you, right? Yeah, go for it.
You know what I write? It's all restricted. So I'm like, I'll break those borders. Screw it.
There we go. Okay, Tyrone, take it.
My only restriction for myself is I don't use any curse words. That's just me. But outside of that, we have graphic violence. We have, everything else is on the table because, it's just life. And I'm dealing with demons, so there's going to be blood and gore and claws and ripped flesh apart and everything. But outside of that, I wanted it to be something that everyone could read. And I know that some parents have a hang up on that. And the blood and guts, I tell them, I was like, it's violent. It's violent. There's people who die. There's moments where people get depressed and have to figure out what they're going to do next and how to recuperate from losses, severe wounds. So that's my only restriction on myself. That's it.
All right. Excellent. All right, Cathy, David, who's next?
Go ahead, David.
Kathy.
Okay, now the arm wrestling begins.
Yeah, go ahead. Might as well.
Yeah, because she'd beat you. She'd beat you, man. She's mean. She cheats. So go for it, David.
Fire it.
Yeah. You're talking horror. You're talking, young adult type novels. In that type of scenario, you have to go with the times, and you have to be very clear that in two of those cases, you're talking about people who are not saved and don't have a clear idea of what the moral aspect is. So is he going to cuss? You better believe it. Why? Because it's normal. Anybody out in the world and anybody in social media, anybody who is actually social in just their work, going to work and coming home, deals with the constant cussing and the constant betrayal and the constant, negative emotions that are just spread like a virus throughout the entire aspect of just normal everyday living. So are they going to pick up on that? Absolutely. So in that aspect, I have to put it in the book or it doesn't make sense to the character. And Brian, you know how I am about characterization. It has to be pure. It can't be diverse. It cannot be split. It has to be, like this until something happens to change them. And does that happen in my book? You better believe it. Does he change over the entire? Yeah, right there at the last. But, he goes through absolute living crap to daggum go and get to the point being where he's like, I'm finally assured it wasn't my fault. I'm finally assured I'm not to blame. And I am now able to pick up the gauntlet to fight this. When he does that, the whole aspect of his mentality changes. He's able to continue. He's able to reconcile with his wife. He's able to move forward, regardless of society, because they still see him as a killer. But he's able to defy all of that. Now, under those circumstances, that's a triumphant story. But a lot of people don't grasp it because what they see or what they perceive in the line of Christianity is once you're saved, everything's glorious, just like, was said before. But it's not true. We get actually a lot more damage, a lot more mental anguish. We got a lot more, restrictions to our own lives than anybody else in the world because we can't do such and such. We can't do such and such. We can't do such and such. Why? Because there again, God said don't. And because he said not to, we're not allowed to. Now, granted, we can. We can do just like Paul said, and we can sin all we want to just because we know we're forgiven. But that doesn't mean grace abounds. In all actuality, it just means just the opposite because it will corrupt our soul eventually. So what we need to do is start looking at it from a realistic point of view that, we are in the world, but we're not part of it. To not be part of it means that we've got to step aside and say, I can function in this, but just like when you go to work and you come home, it's a visiting place. It's not a place you stay. You stay at home. You're safe at home. When you go to work, there's nothing safe outside that door. And that's the way I see Christianity, is that we have to deal with the world, but not 24/7. We take care of home 24/7. And under those circumstances, that's the way I see my writing and I see everything else in that aspect. You take care of just the core, but the rest of it, that's where you've got to try and reach out to reality and say, this affects, this is needed. And if it's not needed, I get rid of it because I don't like fluff. I can't deal with it. And I know that, bringing up things like, say, that one chapter in Tolkien about the crack in the wall. Yeah, I would like to delete that entire chapter. But, I'd rather have a story that literally takes you on the seat of a roller coaster ride and doesn't let you off and only gets better after the first hit than I would try and cater to some sort of ideology that a lot of people wouldn't understand, wouldn't be able to relate to, and even worse is may not ever get.
Okay. All right. Kathy, same question. Do you find more or fewer restrictions while writing your religious romance books?
In the beginning, there was a lot of restrictions because what I wanted to write as far as Christian romance was so out of the box of that genre that I was actually told not to write it. And I'm like, I struggled with that for a couple of years. And then I just ended up, I kind of at one point, I was just like, I'm just going to write what I'm going to write. And people who like it are going to like it. And those who are not aren't. And that's okay. Because go to Amazon, right? I'm going to chase a rabbit here a little bit. Go to Amazon, look up any genre you want and the subgenre of that. You're going to find anything on any, genre that you want, right? And that's okay because that's what it's there for. So if you don't want to write, if you don't want to read about Christian characters with broken lives, messed up, vocabulary or things like that, don't read my stuff. If you want to read a sweet romance, read As You Wish. They're going to hold hands. Whoa, right? If you want something super spicy, get Jericho's Walls. There's more than hand holding Jericho's Walls. Okay? Like a lot, right? But you know what? The thing those characters have in common is they've dedicated their lives to the Lord. And they're living in the way that makes them true to themselves. You're talking about, David, you were talking about making the characters, I guess who they are. I can't remember how you phrased it. But it's making them real. It's making real people come alive on the page. And they may be people you never meet in real life. But they're so real in your mind that you can accurately write them. Not just the description, but in physical characteristics, but emotions and mannerisms and, just real people and make them people come alive on the page. Right. And in the beginning, I was repressing that because people were like, you can't write this. You can't write this, And finally, I'm just like, I'm going to write it. It's just going to happen. And yes, I've lost people because I've made that choice, but it's a choice I've made. And I have ran every choice by God first. Okay. And I've written books that'll probably never see the light of day because those are things that I haven't been given the green light on. Okay. And that's fine because writing for fun is still writing. Okay. It's still getting those ideas and stories out there. Who knows? One day God may be like, hey, that one manuscript you wrote? Yeah. Okay, well, I want you to go ahead and publish it now. Okay. That's how it works. But I found myself loosening to the point that I wrote Underneath My Innocence, right, which isn't in the Christian genre. Okay, don't even think it is. It just isn't. Okay. And I loved it because it was so different from what I was used to writing. It was like there was so much structure and rules and regulations of what I had to write or couldn't write within the Christian genre. And when I wrote Innocence, I was like, you can do whatever you want. And it was just like this rainbow, and it was beautiful. And you know what I'm saying? And I was like, this is actually kind of nice. So I've loosened the restrictions of what I've written. Now, will somebody who's a Christian probably read Underneath My Innocence? Probably not. Not unless they want something that's Not Christian.
Well
I'm gonna
said.
put it that way. I had somebody pick up the book and they're like, page 1, you are using words that I've never said out loud. Thank you. Thank you very much. I take that as a compliment. You know, and it's okay. I mean, we don't always read the Bible. We don't always read the tracts or literature from church. Sometimes we pick up Tolkien. Sometimes we pick up the Scarlet Letter. Sometimes we pick up C.S. Lewis. Sometimes we pick up, Michael Crichton or, some of the other authors out there. Does it make us less Christian? Does it make us less godly? Does it make us less someone God is not going to love? No, it just, we choose to read the time. I think of it like this. Okay. You go to your favorite restaurant and you know what sandwich you want, right? Okay. But you go there one day and you're like, you know what? I don't think I want that sandwich. I think I'm going to have another sandwich instead. Does it make it wrong? No, it doesn't. It just, you decided to just do something different. And that's okay. Right? As long
Until
as
it's dino porn.
Do what?
Until it's dino porn.
Well, I've heard of that.
I didn't say it. I did not say it. It wasn't me.
I almost mentioned that earlier.
Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., I'm so glad you are here.
He's keeping us true.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's a good influence on all of us. If we would just listen now. Anyway, go ahead, Kathy. I'm sorry.
Oh, I forgot what I was saying. Either way, it's just your relationship with God is good, right? And you're trying your best to be the best person, to be who He needs you to be at any given moment, right? Then you're okay. I mean, that's just me. That's thus saith Kathy. But if your relationship with God, and sometimes He's going to take things out of your life that you want in it. Because as people, we want things. Sometimes things that are bad for us, right? But God knows what's best, and He's going to take those things out of our life or say, I need you to stop doing this. And it's going to be things that we won't want to stop doing or seeing or whatever else. But if we make that choice to do what He asks us to, then we are going to be so blessed. It's going to be amazing. And we can't even comprehend it until it actually happens.
Mm-hmm. Very good. That's very good.
That's awesome.
And I'm now thinking Kathy's sales are going to go up in the next 48 hours because she's the one who's mentioning on the first page with words that you wouldn't say out loud. Pick up the work of Cathy Jackson, available on Amazon. It's all how you market it, right?
Underneath my innocence. There you go.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes, venture under the innocence of Cathy Jackson. There we go. Yeah, we could probably do a whole show on how to market Christian books to godless heathens. I think that could be a show on its own. Bill Sarton has an excellent question here, and this is something I think we need some serious thought on this one. What would your advice be to someone who wants to write a faith-based book?
As a research nut, and Brian knows this, I research way more than I should. But just as a, whatever you want to call it, a writing practice. Okay, let's do a writing practice. What do? You're going to write a faith-based book, right? Best thing to do, go to the source. From the source, okay, fine. You want to write something that's going to be biblical. It's got to have a biblical type background. And then above and beyond that, it's got to have a moral to the story. So let's say we'll take the story of David. From the story of David, instead of him being king of the Israelites, it's nowadays, and he's king of the mob, but he's not in the mob as of yet. Under those circumstances, he has to fight his way from one family to the other. Then he takes over the family. When he takes over the family, he fights all these other mobsters and this, that, and the other. But then he finds one guy he thinks is on the other guy's side, ends up killing him, finds out that he was wrong, this, that, the other. The whole story is right there. Let's say we take over something. Oh man, a really, Ruth. You want to talk about something? Taming of a Shrew. And we add that to it. You want to, I mean, the stories are immense and they are so out there to actually be able to create. So to sit there and say that you can't write a faith-based book, all you got to do is just flip the switch. Instead of it being a biblical story, take the characters the way they are written, the way you already see them as, because they're not really very clearly defined in the Bible. So you can do whatever you clearly want to in a lot of cases. And under that setup, now you just put them in a circumstance that is actually going to match. And then from it matching, you're done. Gideon, best thing ever. He's a daggone manager at a restaurant. And under those circumstances, now he has to daggone make decisions. And those decisions are about who he keeps, who he doesn't. And you got other restaurants that are competing for his business. And he doesn't know which to serve at which time. And the critic is God. And he tells him to do this. And he doesn't. But then he comes back and changes his mind. You see what I mean? It's
well, the template is already there for the most part. Yeah, I mean, so many of my books, are written that same way. The Bloom series.
Setting. That's it.
Yeah, the Bloom series, the first one, John, he comes in and saves and cares and loves and prays over Phoenix. I mean, and it's such a beautiful analogy of what God does in our life, where he meets us where we are. I mean, we may be in the best point of our life and God says, here I am. And you're like, hey, what up? You know, right? Or you may be in the most broken area of your life and God says, all right, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make sure that you have everything that you need, right? And that's so John. And his brother Jonathan, he's the prodigal son. There's your prodigal son story.
Yeah.
You know, and his brother David was, well, what if they had another brother, right? And that brother had always been there, right? And then I think that now I'm thinking about the prodigal son. There was two boys, wasn't there? The older son, yeah, thank you, right? Well, the older son, that's David. He's always been there. He's taking care of the family, right? That's where the Bloom series came from, was those three stories. But the springboard was God picks you up exactly where you are. When you call on him and you ask him to be saved, he takes you exactly where you are. He meets you there. And he says, I have a plan and a purpose for you. And he has a plan and a purpose for you anyway. Okay. But he says, I have a plan and a purpose for you. And I'm going to walk beside you. I'm going to carry you when you need it. I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to be your best friend, closer than any sibling or parent or best friend or whoever you ever had. And I'm going to be there right there with you, before you. I'm going to be after you. And I'm going to make sure that no matter what goes on in your life, you're right there. I'll be straight up honest with you. Right around January, I ended up in the hospital and I didn't really say anything about this. And, I was in the worst pain I had ever been in my entire life. And I deal with that pain almost on a daily basis now since January. And it's changed me as a person and the way I do and say things. But it was in those moments when I was at the worst of my pain that I felt God the closest to me. And that's a true story. I mean, it's sitting in a wheelchair in the ER. And I have if you're familiar with it, dissociative disorder, show of hands, okay? Right? That's where you're in so much pain that you disconnect with the reality around you. That's when you aren't mentally there anymore because you're in so much pain. I've had 4 kids. I've had a miscarriage. Okay, I've never been in that much pain and still be conscious. And at one point, I was sitting there in the wheelchair in the ER, And I was in so much pain that everything around me just disconnected. But I remember in my mind, I was saying, I remember thinking, be still and know that I'm God. There were hymns floating through my mind. There were scripture verses that I was recalling. And in that moment, God was right there, closer than I think he's ever been to me. And when you walk with God, when you, and I didn't even say, God, I need you. He was just there. And that's the amazing thing. People think they have to like chant or, say, God be with me or something. And you know what? He's already there. He's already sitting beside you. He's already walking with you. He's standing with you. And in that moment, right, where I disconnected, I found God in a place where I had never, ever, and I would never have found him had that actually not happened. And I told Matt, I said, my husband, Matt, I said, I'm grateful for it. And you think, wait, how can you be like almost at a 9, almost 10 pain scale to be grateful for it? Because God was there. And I got to know God in a way I've never got to know him before. So, Brian, you're always saying that I find the positive in everything. There's another classic example of the story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Really. Right.
It's so God to just be there when you need him, no matter what you're going through. And to be able to translate that in your books to other people in a way that they respond to, whether it's through, demons or whatever else, or however else you feel called to write, you write it. And if people have an issue with it, then you say, God, I'm giving them to you. And I'm not going to deal with it because you're telling me, you're giving me this gift. You've given me this gift. And if you didn't want me to write this or say these things or be in these places, then you wouldn't let it happen. So do it. Whatever you're doing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that.
We all did.
But just keep doing it because you are changing the world. And you may not be overtly saying, God is here, but you know what? You're making it known by what you do. And God is going to bless not only you, but the people who read your books. And you get to be an instrument. You mentioned earlier, who are you in the Bible, or what's your favorite book? There's times I'm Paul. You know what I'm saying? I'm that fisherman standing there clueless, feeling completely uneducated, out of my depth, right? There's times I'm David, knowingly doing the wrong thing, right? Having a great time at it. Thank you very much. Right? There's times that I'm so many different people in the Bible. And I kind of, how did they work through those situations? They went to God. Peter went back to God, even though he denied him 3 times. And what did God do? He set Peter up to be the rock of the church. You're a rock. What you do, you are a rock. And we may not be cornerstone, but we're part of that building. We're part of the building that makes up that cornerstone. And each time you put out a book that touches somebody's life, whether you hear about it or you never do, you are being used as his instrument. You're your hand, you're his feet, you're his eyes, you're his ears. You're doing exactly what he intended you to do.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. That is totally powerful. And now Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. is going to hate me because I'm going to make him follow that. I don't envy you one bit, brother. Oh, I'll give you a moment. I'll give you a moment.
I would so totally hug you.
Yeah, I think all three of us could and should. Now, I'll give you a minute to get ready, okay? Because I've got my own. Because I wrote a horror story for a book of mine, and I had to think long and hard about it because it was very God based. and very very God oriented. And it was a hardcore horror story. And I kept, praying over it as like, do I publish this thing? And the thing is, I was guided to go to Google. Next to the Bible, that's where all your answers are. And and I went through and I looked up like hardcore Christian, or I looked at Christian horror. I was nowhere near the first.
Mm-hmm.
Then I wrote hardcore Christian horror, and I put in several names like Clive Barker, and so I was nowhere near the first or the worst, So, but the thing is, I learned that in writing any sort of genre, my 2 cents on this is that in a lot of situations, it's no one can save me now. But the difference is with Christian, whatever the genre is, only God can save me now.
Right.
And that changes the whole tone. So, Mr. Reed, are you ready for me?
I'm ready. For me, I've written Solad. The main character is pretty much loosely based off of myself. So whatever he's facing, I think about, how would I react to this, and how do I wish I would react to it? So that's what he does. He many times he doesn't react the right way. And the character, his name is Kevin Edwards. He pretty much is into superheroes and comic books just like I am. But he always thinks, if I ever had a chance to be a superhero, this is what I would do. This is how I would react. This is what I would do. And now he's in that position on another Earth that's overrun by demons, and all these people are relying on him because God has given him the power to save their world. And now he's learning what it really means to be a hero, because we always say, this is the way I would do things, or this is how I would react. And now he's being put through the motions, and now he realizes I'm not as heroic as I thought I was. And now I have to step up to the plate. Even I can't go back home. The only way off this planet is to save this world. Now I have to do that. So, and so he's drawing his power from God, and he's relying on God, and God has given him a helpmate in the form of his ex-girlfriend Juanita, which makes it even harder because he's still in love with her, and then they're not together anymore. But they've been told that they have to work together in order to save this world, and that's like most of the problems that we're having now. We have to work together in order to save this world, to make it better, to reach other people, because we see what division has done for so many years and to so many families and to so many things. So that's where I get my faith base from. But I'm gonna try not to cry again. But I just want to thank you for having me on tonight.
Amen.
Because I believe the Lord wanted us to be here tonight and to share this, because it has helped me so much. Helped me so much.
Good. We love you, brother.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a couple of questions here, and we're going to try to keep them short so we can close this out after 2 hours. Does that sound good, folks?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So here we go. 2 more from Cindy Kep, and then I've got one. Then that's going to be the hardest one you get all night, I promise. Cindy Kep asks, how do you respond to detractors? We have admitted we get them. And now, in brief, how do you handle it?
I literally don't. In a lot of cases, I ignore it. I do what I do on Facebook. If I get people that don't agree with me, if they don't see, me as beneficial, or they try and actually attack me, then under those circumstances, I usually either ignore or I block. And I've done that in real life because it's so much easier than trying to actually convince somebody who's not able to be convinced. And they've already made up their mind if they're already attacking. And in that aspect, it's so much easier just to ignore than it is to fight a battle that is pointless.
Yeah, very good, very good. Cathy, how about you? How do you respond to detractors?
I'm gonna let Tony go first.
Okay, Tony, would you like to go next?
I've gotten to the point now where I don't listen to it. I just ignore it, like David said, because there's somebody else who's enjoying the books, who's enjoying what I'm writing, and like I said, I've known now that everybody's not going to like what I write, so I can't appease you. That's fine. I don't. But there are other people who get it. I mean, I've had people write me long Facebook messages that said, "Wow, how did you put all?" And when I'm writing a story, I'm just thinking I'm writing a superhero story. This is what I like, and then they tell me, how did you, the way you show temptation and the way you wrote fear, and I can see them in my mind's eye. This is awesome. That's encouragement to me. That's amazing.
That's great. That's great. Okay. So a couple more from Cindy Cap.
Can I answer?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we got you. I'm sorry. I'm just still so verklempt over earlier.
Sorry.
So please, Cathy, I apologize. Go ahead, please.
I love it. And let me tell you why. Okay. I love it when people, my most favored review is on my book, Yours to Love. And I was going to pull it up here real quick to read it. Right. My number one most liked review is on Yours to Love. And that review says okay, here we go. Oh, that wasn't it. I got to find it. Either way, it was how unrealistic Ruthie's expectations were and how unrealistic the book was. And I'm like, hang on a second. Okay. Number one. Okay. I wrote Ruthie's character in the way that I looked for my husband. I have a list. I had a list. I knew exactly what I wanted. I was willing to wait because I knew what I wanted in a spouse. I knew what I didn't want. Okay. And that was Ruthie. Ruthie knew what she wanted. She knew what she didn't want. And when God said, "Hey, Max is your guy," she was jazzed. Okay. But she waited because she wanted who God sent to her and not somebody right now. And then my most loved review is on that book and how unrealistic the book is. And I'm like, so we're not supposed to have standards? Not just as Christians, but as people? We're not supposed to have standards. We're not supposed to. My standard was I didn't want somebody who hunted. Okay, this is me, right? I didn't want somebody who smoked. I didn't want somebody who drank. I wanted a loving husband who took care of his kids and every kid around him. I wanted someone who is affectionate, someone who was caring, who was attentive. And when I found that in Matt, I knew that's what I was looking for. Now, I wasn't a Christian at the time. We were well into being married before, either one of us gave our life to the Lord. But I had standards and I had a list. Okay. And I wrote that into Ruthie's character. And someone's like, "That's so unrealistic." And I'm like, really? And how she approached dating. She didn't just, jump into bed with him. She took time. She got to know him. She got to know who he was as a person, as a dad, who he was, how he treated people, how people treated him, what others thought of him. She took her time and she got to know him. And I love that review. When I first saw it, I hated it, but I love it because that was me. When I wrote that into Ruthie's character. And I wanted that to come out in the book, and it did. And if you don't like it, that's fine. So people who say, "Well, I don't like this aspect of the story," or "How could you write about strippers," or whatever else, or "Why would you write about domestic abuse?" Because it should be written about. Because it should be. People should know if they do have a checklist, like myself, right? To wait for that person, that you're worth it. that we are uniquely and wonderfully made. And God has that person in mind for you. And if you're just patient, so patient, no matter how hard it gets, God is going to send that person to you. And, it may not be a big flashy, this is it, but it's that subtle nudging, like, hey, look at that person over there. You know what I'm saying? And then it just sort of builds from there. So as far as what people like or don't like about my books, right? That's really on them. There's a whole list of genres and books at Amazon. Go find your favorite. If it's not me, that's fine. I'm okay with it. And it's really about knowing who you are. And when you know who you are, it doesn't really matter what other people say. If you're okay with God, with what you're doing, writing, reading, whatever, then you're fine. Okay? And you're always going to have the haters, right? The people who come against you and say, you shouldn't be writing or talking or seeing or whatever this, or how can you be a Christian and fill in the blank, right? You're always going to have that. But if you're confident in who you are, if you know who you are, if you know who you are in God, then none of it really matters.
All right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I've been flashing some of the comments on the screen while you guys have been talking, but there's some here I don't know if you read it here on the panel, but I do want to read them to you. Joel McKeel says that was a powerful testimony. Bill Sarden says, love you, Tyrone.
Yeah.
And big virtual hugs from Rick Bradley. And Meredith Walgren, the comics noob, says, I love your honest reaction, Tyrone. That's when we know our heart is truly spoken to. All right. And Rick Bradley says, Matt is smiling from ear to ear. We noticed that. Now, so much that Cathy is now backlit, and no one says Cathy in the corner, Brian. Yes, I should know that. And anyway, and I do want to say that Cindy Cap has a question here about writing characters like themselves, racially or otherwise, or is it acceptable or even beneficial to write characters radically different? I would welcome the panel to come back and tackle that topic. Do you want to address that now, the three of you, or would you like to wait and do it later on a future episode? Because I think it's kind of a
future episode, because I see that one being very diverse in ways, because people that have not read Sons of Soulstar, you're going to be surprised. I've got a Mexican character in there. I've got some very different characters in there, and they're not all, traditionally white types. And so under those circumstances, they talk different. They are all over the board, because I love diversity. I do. I can't help it. I've got friends that are Mexican. I got friends who are from Wales. I've got friends who are Irish. I got friends who are French. I've got friends who are Australian. I've got all these guys who are all sorts of nationalities and all over the board. And under those circumstances, I like putting them in as characters, because I love their accents. I love the way they talk. I love their mannerisms. And I love the way that they look at the world differently than, say, we do. And because of that diversity, Sons of Soulstar hit the top of the charts because of it. So, yeah, I would definitely love to see that on another episode.
all right. Cathy, Tyrone, would either of you like to tackle this subject too?
My characters are diverse too. Although my main characters are African American, one of the characters is a white man who was trained by older black man to be the hero before these characters come. So his reaction to these new superheroes isn't a racial one. It's not because you're black. It's because you're taking my thunder, because I was the hero first and everybody chanted my name. And now everybody's singing praises to Solad, and now where does that leave me? You know, I'm just a regular human being with skills, and now you all have superpowers, and you're saving the world, and I'm your sidekick now. How do I handle that? What's my place in the world now? So I think seeing things in different viewpoints is necessary. It's important to see why people feel the way they do.
Okay.
And
Cathy, how about
especially
you?
in context, there's a hierarchy also that a lot of people don't recognize. A
Right.
lot of people call it bias, racism, whatever. But in all actuality, it's there. And under those circumstances, you have to put that included into your books if you've got diversity in them because it shows. I've got a Russian character in Sons of Solastar who she is like boss, like really, really boss. And she's not going to hold anything by anybody, regardless male, female, or otherwise. Then I've got the Hispanic guy who's a little bit more timid, but you find out that he's a traitor. But he turns. And when he turns, he tries to come back. So I took a lot from their culture. I took a lot from the way that they are in general. And you've got to treat it correctly if you're going to treat it like that. And a lot of people don't. They just say that they're this and they still act white. They're this, but they still act white. You can't do that. Somebody that's French is going to be high and mighty. But they're also going to be more relatable in certain aspects of what they're doing. You've got the normal like Hispanics who, depending on which area you're talking about, it's going to be very diverse in whether they're going to be timid or whether they're going to be in your face. Russian females, in a lot of cases, are that type of scenario of either very submissive or they're really going to be bossy. It depends on military training or no military. And all of this other stuff. You've got to put the character together. It can't just be about a race. It has to be their history. It has to be who they are in general. And you've got to develop them over the whole mass section of how they are. So in that aspect, you have to relate it to a person who actually knows. And that says a lot.
All right. Cathy, do you have anything to add to this?
I often put my foot in my mouth, so I'm going to preface it with that, okay? Okay, there we go. So now you know. I was raised, my mother taught me that, okay, how do I say this? Okay. My mother taught me that it isn't what you look like, it's how you act. Okay, we've been talking about this in our house, and I've not approached the subject. When I write, I don't write in ethnicity. I don't write in color. I don't write in so much about my characters because I want whoever's reading it to see themselves. I mean, at the core of who we are, we're either selfish or not. We're mean or we're kind. We're charitable or we hoard stuff. I mean, at the core of who we are on the outside, we are who we are on the inside. And so somebody asked me at Imaginarium one year, why don't you write in, skin tone on a character? And I thought, what? It's irrelevant. I mean, it really, really is. Because I want the reader to, if she thinks she's Phoenix, be Phoenix. If she thinks she's, Tavora, be Tavora. If she thinks she's, I had to think of my character's name, Elizabeth, right? Then be Elizabeth, right? If you're a guy who reads my stuff, and yes, I have guys who read my stuff. If you want to be Max, be Max. If you want to be Joshua, you'll be a very happy guy. I mean, and then My one thing that I've always pushed since I became active on social media, even before I set up my author page or even my book page, was to love one another. And I know it's very Pollyanna. I know it really is. But if everybody treated everyone with respect and love and care and decency and saw each other, okay, through God's eyes of one another, could you imagine how beautiful this world would be? You know, see past hair color or eye color or body shape or tall, lean, whatever. It doesn't really matter. If somebody has a beautiful heart, I couldn't care. I would care less about what they look like, because it's not. And I paraphrase scriptures from the Bible rather badly, but it's out of our heart that we speak, that we are who we are, and if I see somebody being caring towards someone, whether it's a child or another adult, I could care less if they look like, because that person becomes very special to me. That person, and it's never about anything but who that person is. And I have a hard time. I mean, I get it, right? But I don't get it why people would be so cruel to each other when showing love to people and the good that comes out of that, when that's such a better alternative. Why don't you just do that? Mm-hmm. And if we all did that, like I said, I know it's very Pollyanna, but if we all did that, could you imagine the world we would be living in? It's amazing. So I mean, so no, I don't write in. I had somebody come up to me once and they said, I can't remember which book it was, and they're like, is your character, your female character, is she from Georgia? And I'm like, never been to Georgia. And she's like, I can so see her from Georgia. And I said, you know what? She's from Georgia. Because that resonated with that person. And I don't really care if you are kind to someone, if you show love to people, that's what really matters. That's the heart of who you are. And I see that through so many of my Facebook friends. And it just blows me away, and it astounds me how wonderful people in this world can actually be. And I probably didn't answer your question. I'm sorry.
Who knows what it was anymore?
I know.
Who cares? This is more important.
I know we're going to have that world one day where, the lion will lay down with the lamb, and, young kids young children will play with something. I told you I paraphrase scriptures badly, right? I know we're going to have that. But if we can be that one person who helps to show the world and be that light, right? Then it would be such an honor and a blessing to be that person through the things that we say to each other or how we treat each other, and just love one another. Love one another. 3 words that are so simple but so hard. So it's for me, it's never about how a person looks. It's always about their heart.
Beautiful. Well, here we go. One more question, but we do want to get this comment in because I know where this is coming from. Rick Bradley says, I do want to say that Cathy is 1/3 of the reason I'm a writer. So thank you for being part of what inspired me, Cathy. Okay.
Oh, I don't know how to react to that.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, we have one more question now. I'm going to get this, to get you people on your way and back to a productive evening. Cindy Cap has one last question here, and we're going to keep this under 15 seconds for everyone. All right? This means you, David. Anyway, what other genre would you like to try next, if you would? We'll start. Okay, 50. I see Matthew up there. The pressure's on Cathy. We're going to call it her last. All right, David. What
I'm
other?
already doing my next one, which is crime drama. It'll be my first one, and a detective crime drama at that. So I love it. It's my new addiction.
All right, excellent. Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. How about you? If you picked another genre, what would it be?
Well, I got a crime drama too, a mystery crime drama about a African American cop from Memphis who can see the future, the past, and the present, and she uses that to solve her cases.
Nice, man. Get me the first copy. Okay, Cathy, you.
Me, I've actually got the idea in mind. Of course, one of the book is taking precedence that I'm going to start writing soon. But I've actually got a book in mind for a dragon shifter romance.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's going to be completely different. But I already have kind of the idea and sort of a foundation and outline for it. But I've never written, and I never really thought I'd ever write a dragon shifter romance. So that's going to be one that I'm going to be writing very soon.
That's very cool. That is very cool. And then one last comment from Bill Sarton. He says, this was a great show. Crazy cool. Kudos to Cathy, Tyrone, David for your wonderful testimonies, and to, what's his name, for the usual reasons. All right. Thank you very much for that, Bill. I appreciate that. This has been a roller coaster. You guys, I go into these shows kind of thinking I know where it's going to head, and I'm 99% of the time wrong. But always with delightful results. And this is, I think God put you three together tonight for a very good reason. And I think that you've touched probably some people, not just in a creative sense, but otherwise. So anyway, I think the only thing left to do is for each of you in turn to take a moment, take a deep breath, because I think we all can use it now, and tell everybody where they can reach you, where they can see your work, and just how incredible you are. Okay, let's start with David Adkins, and we'll go around the room to Tyrone, then Cathy. Okay, then I'll close out the show, and I'll put you on hold, and then we'll talk after the thing. See, that's when we go and do that's why you ought to be a guest on the show, because that's when we really start dishing the dirt on during that after hours thing. So anyway, David, I'm going to let you have the floor, sir. Tell everybody where they can get a hold of your amazing work, sir.
All right, I'm on lulu.com. I am also on amazon.com. I am also at Barnes & Noble and a few other places, actually. I just don't know them all. To be honest. I do know that. I've been finding myself in some areas I would have never suspected my books to be at. But I'm also on Kindle and a few other ones. So that being said, you can find it under Sons of Solastar, The Broken Chain, The Dead Chain, and you can also find me with And We Were Gods and the Hotel Nowhere, the biggest one I've got so far. So under those circumstances, we got Black and Blood coming up next. So yeah, stay tuned.
Excellent. Now, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., take it away, sir. What have we got to look forward to from you? And where can we find you?
You can find me at TyroneTonyReedJr.com. You can also find me on Spotify. I have a show called Hub City Now with Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. And you can find me on Amazon.com if you want to get the ebooks. But if you want to get the books autographed and personally from me, you can go to TyroneTonyReedJr.com and I will mail those copies to you.
Excellent. Who could pass that offer up? Here we go. And now, closing us out will be Cathy Jackson with Matthew by her side.
You can find me anywhere you normally buy your books. Amazon, I've got paperbacks and Kindle editions there. I'm on Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, Smashwords. Um,
And Google Playbooks.
oh, Google Playbooks. That's the other one I was trying to think of. I don't know where my stuff is. If you look for if you look for Cathy Jackson and you find As You Wish, I know, right? You have to search those two together. You'll find the rest of my books, which is amazing. So I'm usually there. I do have a Spotify for most of my books. I have a music playlist for them. And it's a very eclectic playlist. You're going to find everything from metal to country to pop to jazz to gospel. You're going to find everything in those playlists. So I'm there as well. I'm on YouTube. I got a few videos there. Nothing, some are a lot older videos. But yeah, some stuff there too. So you're always more than welcome. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Cathy Jackson's Books. Anyone is always more than welcome to join there. It says Cathy Jackson's Books, but it's totally open for anybody. And authors are more than welcome to post their works, their links there. And it's all about just including people. So you're more than welcome to find me there. Usually at author C. Jackson or author Cathy Jackson on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Cathy Jackson. Thank you, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. and David Adkins. Folks, you have been awesome tonight. And I'm going to mute these guys. And Cindy Kep says, Fabu, thank you for tackling all the questions. We don't dodge the hard ones here, I'm telling you. We are just like, this is where you're going to get the information. Anyway, thank you to our panel for tackling a very sensitive subject, but with remarkable grace. I hope everyone got a lot from it. I know I did this evening. And please join us next week when we have a couple of new pulp writers who specialize in continued characters, and they're incredible action writers, namely the one and only Bobby Nash and our friend Charles F. Millhouse. The three of us will be talking 1 week from tonight, starting at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Time on Clever Title Pending. Don't forget myself, Brian K. Morris. I can be found on Amazon and Smashwords Rising Tide Pub. It's where you can sign up for my monthly free newsletter. We also have a Rising Tide publications page on Facebook. Please check us out. Also, please, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're going to be putting on some new videos soon of an educational and informative and hopefully entertaining way. And we hope you'll subscribe and give those videos a thumbs up if you would, please. So anyway, this is Brian K. Morris and Clyde Hall. Thank you all for an enlightening and uplifting session. Well, thank you very much, Clyde Hall, and thank you very much for tuning in tonight. We're going to be taking our leave now. Hope you all have a fantastic evening. And as I switch to the next thing along the line here, there we go. It's so smooth. This show just runs like clockwork. Anyway, thank you for being here tonight. We'll see you in 1 week. Don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow, myself, on Nevermind the Furthermore at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Central Time here on where you're watching me right now. So please don't forget, stay smart, stay safe, wash your hands, and never apologize for being awesome. Thank you for watching Nevermind Furthermore. We'll talk to you later. Have a good night.
Thank you for tuning in to Clever Title Pending, a Rising Tide Publications and Brian K. Morris production. A member of Comic Book Advocating Network and sponsored by GeekInsider.com. Become part of our show with sponsorship and advertising opportunities. For details, contact advertising@geekinsider.com or visit podcast.geekinsider.com. The Geek Insider podcast is available on your favorite app, so please hit the follow button and share it out to your friends. Because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.